Have you ever totally flipped out on somebody? Where you find yourself saying things that you already know you're going to regret later. You really wish that you wouldn't say them. Or you're saying things that you really don't even believe. You're using a voice that is way louder or meaner than you intend for it to be. And you just basically have totally lost it. I mean, maybe you even strike out at them, not just verbally, but physically. Or maybe you take something that isn't even involved in the conversation. Like you might throw something across the room and break it. Or you might rip something up that is actually very precious to you. These are moments where you've lost your self-control, and it can be extremely frustrating to be in that situation. I'm Debbie Pokornik, and for today's video in the Bringing Out the Best in Yourself and Others series, I would like to talk specifically about self-control. What is it? How do we get it? What can we do so that we're not losing it? Now, if you listened to the intro and thought to yourself, yeah, I do that, so what? Then this video probably isn't for you. However, if you found yourself thinking, yeah, I do, maybe feeling that little twinge of guilt, thinking about something that happened with your kids or a time with your partner, or maybe even thinking about how often it happens to you and gets you in trouble at work or on a team or whatever the case might be, then this video can change your life. Dr. Stephen R. Covey talks about a book that he came across many years ago where he learned something so profound it actually changed his life. What he came across was a statement that said, between stimulus and response, there is a gap. Now that doesn't sound all that life-changing, does it? But the reality is, when we can understand that there truly is always a gap between something happening to us and how we respond, then we can recognize that we always have some say over what we're going to do or how we're going to respond. Now, I realize this can be very hard to take in at first if you're not familiar with this idea already, because it seems like there's times where you just respond automatically. But the truth is, events, the things that happen, are neutral. There is nothing good or bad about anything that happens. We give it the meaning. And in fact, if you took 10 people into a room and showed them the exact same situation, you could get 10 different interpretations of whether it's good or bad. Events are neutral, always. And it depends on how you feel about certain things or what your thoughts are, what your beliefs are, that is going to determine whether you think it's okay or whether it's not okay. Now, in case you're thinking, all right, maybe there is a gap, but it's not always there. When I work with students, I like to say to them, okay, imagine that you had to cross a river, and in the middle of this river is a rock. If you choose to jump across the river without using the rock or to wade across it elsewhere, does that mean the rock isn't there? Now, the kids are always really quick to point out that, of course, the rock is still there. And then they want to tell me about all the creative ways they would get across the river. But the point is that just like the rock, the gap doesn't disappear just because we don't use it. And so the trick is to figure out ways to really become aware of the gap, to make the gap as big as it can possibly be, to make it stand out in neon lights if we can, so that we can use it to help us stay in control. So how do we do that? Well, the first step is emotional intelligence, or I like to refer to it as self-awareness, which is to start paying attention to the body cues, the signals that your body gives you for different feelings. Now, some of us have been raised to not talk about feelings, to not even really notice feelings. And if that's true for you, then that is step number one. Learn about different feelings. How do those feelings present in your body? Okay, because there's always body cues. And once you know that tension in your back or shoulders means you're getting angry, then that's already a first clue for helping you to increase the gap. There's another part about feelings, though, that is also very important, and that is to learn what are the triggers for you. What are the feelings that are like launching pads to anger? Okay? Because we lose self-control when we're angry and we continue to allow the anger to escalate, right? So what are the feelings? Now, there's all kinds of feelings when we feel hurt verbally or physically, or when we see someone we love being hurt, especially, if it's our child, look out because then we're very protective, and so that can launch us to anger very quickly. But also feelings like embarrassment, humiliation, disappointment, certainly feelings like frustration, aggravation, irritation, which are part of the anger scale. Okay? All of those feelings can be launching pads. So what that means is that if you hate being embarrassed, like, a person who is a pretty, let's say a tough person, and they pride themselves on being strong and brave. And if you walk around a corner at the same time as them and you go boo, and they jump, okay, if you really get them and you scare them, you can bet they're probably going to launch pretty quickly to anger. Now, if you grew up in a family that there was always a lot to be afraid of, and you had a very fearful childhood, then chances are that anger isn't your default from fear. Chances are you have other coping mechanisms. So fear might not be a launching pad for you, but humiliation might be, or disappointment might be, especially if you've been disappointed a lot in your life. Then to you, disappointment could be like the ultimate in somebody letting you down, okay, or showing they're not trustworthy. So learn what your triggers are, because once you know what your triggers are, what feelings are triggers for you, then you learn the cues for them, and that already will help you. Because anytime, if you notice you're embarrassed and that's one of your launching pads, then you know already you've got to disengage from that feeling and pay attention, notice the gap, because you have a strong chance of overreacting otherwise. Okay? So that's the first step. Become aware of your feelings. Work on that emotional intelligence and understanding how those feelings present and what your triggers are for you. Once you've got that down, and even when you don't, you can still start on this other one. When you notice that you're in a situation where you're feeling angry, or you're starting to get, you can feel the emotions kind of creeping up, all right? That's a good time to have a word, a phrase, or a picture that you can use to kind of detach from the feeling and become almost like an observer, somebody who's gonna, watching from the outside. Okay, so this word might be, with kids it's often whoa, or freeze, or think, or with adults it's often words like relax, calm down, stay calm, you're better than this. These are some of the little sayings. Some people even like to use fun ones that'll make them smile, like slow down there, little doggy. And so, that sounds silly, but if you can think that, and it kind of removes you from that feeling that you were starting to feel and allows you to become an observer, puts a little inner smile on your face, that's key. That's wonderful if you can do that, because it's really hard to smile, a genuine smile, and be really angry at the same time. Okay? So once you figure out what you can use to help calm you down, and I should mention that your picture has to be a picture in your mind. So if you picture yourself being very calm and relaxed on a deck chair, or lying at the beach, or whatever, okay, make sure it's one that you carry in, because if you have to actually look at a picture, then it's not going to help you if you have road rage, or if you're in a situation where you're out and somebody is trying to push your buttons. Okay, so that's step 2. Have a word, a phrase, or a picture that you can use to stop yourself from escalating the anger, and to make the gap stand out for you more. And then the third piece is to take control of your thoughts. You see, we don't control all of our thoughts. Some thoughts come to us unbidden. We don't mean to have them. And you probably, can think of times where you've thought something and then thought, well, why would I even think that? That I don't get it. Is there something wrong with me? No, those are thoughts that are not even yours. Just let them sail on by. But in this particular moment, okay, you've taken control of this situation, used your word to notice the gap, and in that moment, the brain has already started to sense your escalation in feeling. And so the brain is now sending signals out to your senses, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, and so on, and asking, are we in danger? Now, if you don't take control of your thoughts, all right, you've done your whoa, and you've stopped yourself, okay, but now you look at this person who has done something that you think you have a right to be angry about, and you think, how dare he? Who does he think he is? He's always trying to get my goat, and oh, he's driving me crazy. Guess what the signal is you're sending back to the brain? In that moment, you are sending back a signal that says, yeah, we're in danger, big time. Get ready. So what does the brain do? It instantly diverts the blood from the thinking part of your brain to the parts that will make you strong and fast, because survival is #1 top priority. So guess what? You're no longer as smart. Your thoughts are now increasing your feeling of anger. Okay, they've helped you to make that leap even though you had tried to stop it. They've helped you to make that leap, and they're getting you in trouble. As soon as the brain diverts the blood, you're in a pretty bad spot. Now, that's not to say you can't recover. Some people do, okay? Where they'll start to yell, they'll start to, to overreact or to throw a fit, and suddenly they'll just kind of see themselves and they'll notice. And I call that stepping back into the gap, where they'll actually stop and go, whoa, I need a timeout. I'm not handling this well. Obviously, I need some time to cool down, that kind of thing. And so they actually take the time to get back into the gap. So in this case, in step number 3 then, we want to take control of our thoughts and send a message back to our brain saying, nope, all's good. We're fine. No fleeing required. And what happens then is the brain continues to send the blood to the thinking part of the brain. At that point, you are in control of how you respond. Now, you might choose to still yell at a person or speak harshly to them or even fight with them. This is not about what is the correct reaction. This is about you being in control. And a fight, when you're in control of your own responses, when you're thinking clearly, is very different from an emotional fight where you just go in flailing, against someone who outweighs you by 100 pounds and can just pummel you. It's a very different situation. But by doing these 3 steps, you are allowing yourself to take the gap, which is only like a little nanosecond, and extend it out that little bit bigger. The more you practice using the gap, the more obvious it will become to you, the easier it will be for you to use it, the more you'll notice and learn from when you don't use it, okay? And it really can change your life completely. I would love your feedback if you'd like to share your thoughts on this or any of my other videos. And so you can leave a comment below if you're on YouTube, and if not, you can send me an email or leave a comment on my website. Until next time, I'm Debbie Pokornik, and this has been part of the Bringing Out the Best in Yourself and Others series.